World Cup 2020 overview. As you know, Anil is our generous host and is organizing the World Cup for a second time for Game of Thrones. I don't know for how many, for which time for the Legend of the Five Rings, as that is his main game, but we're very happy to have that as well. This time around there are 21 teams. Let me take my password. Yeah, there will be there are 21 teams, a lot of different agendas and shenanigans. We are not following the Conclave list, one of the interesting topics. And the other one is that we have a custom, not following the Conclave restricted list, we have a ban list, which is pretty changed the dynamic of the tournament as a whole. Also, another point is that we are not allowed to duplicate agendas like it was in the previous edition, which made a choice of agenda very crucial for some teams. A lot of testing went in a lot of the games. And so, let's wait a little bit for people to join up and catch up, and we will be off. Just to load something on my other monitor for a moment. And I'll be with you guys. No. Okay, so pretty much ready to go and see how things will be. Welcome to everyone in the chat, and let's go. Our first slide will be the slide with the faction representation. Why is this not on a full screen? Slideshow. And faction representation. We have 21 teams, as mentioned previously. Within the rules, teams are composed of 9 players, which leaves one wild faction, which is represented as our Mystery Knights. There is a typo in my sheet, so find people to proofread your stuff, guys. It's a good. So our Mystery Knights represent what people chose for their 9th faction, and how is the team. So 6 of the teams chose Targaryen. I'm not currently surprised, although Targaryen is one of the most heavy hit on the restricted list, with bans for the Sea of Blood, and with bans for actually no bans, but we overwhelming numbers, Woman of the World, Koto, all these are restricted in the format, if I'm not mistaken. I probably should have the restricted list open somewhere else. Give me a second so I don't talk out of my ass. All preparations, I'm king of it. Rules. Is it this? Okay, so restricted list. There is no ban list for the Targaryen, but Targaryens have Hizar, Meereen, Koto, and overwhelming numbers restricted for them in the event, and still they're heavily represented. Followed by Martell, which I found to my surprise. I was expecting probably a little bit more Nightwatch, considering how strong the banner, the Night's Watch summary is, and then probably going to Valyrian Steel. And other than that, then followed by Stark and Greyjoy, and then we have Nightwatch and Tyrell. There is not a single Baratheon or a Lannister, and that the data in the following sites will show it in one form or another. in one form or another. In the graph, they are not represented a lot of there is actually a lot of diversity in their in their represented houses, and I think that's just because there isn't one build that people know this is strong and it will perform on this stage. Next we have the agendas. Out of the 21 teams, the most used agenda is Swords of the Crossing. Looks like, and then followed closely by the Valyrian Steel. Looks like looks like people still consider on the high tempo and just closing games fast. It will be showing in a different and the interesting part is that this is probably in a lot of different factions. It's easy to utilize the agenda in one way or another. Valyrian Steel Wars to come, that was promised, is a little bit high to my expectation, but I was expecting it to be after fealty at least. But then again, Valyrian Steel Wars to come pretty consistent. The Wars to come, as my friends tell, it's a fealty with templates. And then followed by a fealty. The most preferred banner is Banner Wolf, so looks like people like their attrition and solve that kind of problem, considering the game is a little bit safe. There are 21 teams today. There are 21 teams. It's on the chart on the top. So this I don't know how with 19 of 21, but I would say it's a 90%. Yeah. Then followed by Kings of Summer. Here you can see Kings of Summer. These are all the Night's Watches here. They are gathered. I'm sure there is some stray in the midst that, but this is all Night's Watch. Then we have House with the Red Door. Here are all the Targaryens, for example. Conclave. I'm surprised and happy to see Conclave risen to this extent. Usually this agenda you would see down here with Banner Sun, Greenside, and Alliance Stag and Wolf, or Banner Rolls and Brotherhood without banners. So yep, the banner that is missing from all the factions is banner of the... Oh, what's the Night's Watch banner? The Night's Watch banner is missing. All the other banners are here. Banner of the Watch. Yep, Banner of the Watch. And then, so to my point in here is that I was expecting Wars to come to be probably a little bit higher, although 30 is not bad, but it's one of the agendas that when we choose our team, our decks, we're considering that we have to have this at least somewhere. There isn't a faction that cannot utilize this agenda in one fashion or another. Then we jump to the Conclave. After that, we have a newcomers like White Book, Trading with Kuhor, showing in the list, and then Knights of the Hollow Hill is about the 30%, exactly on the 30%, followed with the Reigns of Castamere. And then Assault from the Shadows, the only Shadow agenda, because Kingdoms of Shadow is banned for the format. And also banning Trader Out is also banned, so there is not that much fuel for the Shadow agendas, which leads us to that we, for example, will not see Baratheon Shadow that performing recently in the next tournament. Next is the spread of the restricted cards and the plots that people like to use the most. Restricted cards, Great Hall makes sense. It's not faction specific and it could be everywhere in the decks. Aside, I would say Martell and Night's Watch. All other factions can utilize Great Hall to great success, and that's and this shows, for example, it's twice as much as any of the other decks, other restricted cards, followed by Doran's Game, which means Martell has all the Martells have chosen Doran's Game, and followed by Ward, again one of the more flexible agendas, and then we have King in the North. King in the North is restricted alongside the other, I mean, yeah, ignore what I'm saying, it's a restricted list, so yeah. King in the North is we are seeing at 13, which is not bad, bad, but before previous in the pre-tournament it was almost everywhere. You see that it's not in the top decks used anywhere. The top 10 quotes in I will say quotation mark there when we get to there. Return to the Field is also chosen for restricted, and there are 12 decks without restricted cards. I found it surprising, just because I don't think it will ever hurt to have a single Doran's game in your pot. I know there are 5. We will get when we get to the Martel, we see that there are 5 Martel decks without restricted cards. There are around 5 one decks without restricted card, and for example, there you can just swap Great Hall, I think, and there will be almost no drawback. Then Drangot Fanatic, Eurons is a little bit above the Drangot Fanatic. And then we see Kotu is above Mirin, but those will go into the detailed faction splits. Regarding pods, I couldn't list all the pods, and I forgot how many different pods we have. But this is the top by count that I counted. So we have for a 9th place trading and Trade Summer Feast share a position with 35. They are in 35 decks. At the gates is King. It's in 118 decks, which is a little bit over the 50%, 61 I think. So every deck is running at the gates, and almost everyone prefers you win or you die for a closer. Reset of choice here, obvious Valar Morghulis, and then we have Valar Harris, and March for the attrition. Exchange of information. The actual count is a little bit higher because it's one of the pots that is duped in most decks. Then we have Hair, Trading, Late Summer Feast, Barring the Gate. A good array of pots, we've seen them and we are expecting to see them in almost every deck without them having almost no drawback to the deck, and could be utilized in many different ways. Surprisingly, people are not afraid of the -1 gold for the one from the Iron Bank, considering that with currently at the gates King of the pots, you play Kings first, at the gates first, and then you can delay your big economy pot. And in the early stages of the game, it was like you go first turn trading, first turn Late Summer Feast, and just then figure out what you're gonna do next. Now with the smoothened economy curve, you see a less need to have those pots, and we see them that the economy pots are like half the percent of the, on 1/3 I would even say, on the economy at the gates, like which is the go-to opener. Pots that use twice, March is King here. People like to run their double marches, double hits. That's something I hate. Despise it with passion, but what can you do here? That's in 10 decks. The numbers here representing how many decks that card is twice. After that, Exchange and Palace of Sorrows. Palace of Sorrows got me by surprise here, considering that probably people expected a lot of burn, but then running double Palace of Sorrows. Main reason for this is House 4 and Knight. Best Knight, we all know that. Then followed by White Swords. We noticed previously that there are quite a few white book decks, and 8 of them are running White Swords as a double. Then we have Hair, Winter Reserves, Winter Festival, another pot that I'm not a huge fan of, just because power, passive power gain, you don't do nothing in with power. And then Return to the Fields, and the pots that are used twice is less Wildfire Assault. A wild joining here is the one from the Iron Bank, and Coppers and Calling the Banners. Interesting that there was a double city besieged. We see Force March showing here as one of the restricted pots as well. A pretty diverse choice of pots, I would say. Now on decks, we'll go through the factions one by one with their decks, agendas, and the top 5-ish pots that they've selected. And if it's a tie, we may see a little bit more or a little bit less. The ties, in my eyes, is something good just because it shows diversity or it shows problems within the faction. For example, Baratheon, I think here there is a clear showing that the trading is one of their strongest decks at the moment with this current restricted list, and then followed by the Conclave for some reason. Banner we have, and then Banner 1, and then all the other are like one-offs. White Book is good because a lot of native kings and no need to do a lot of shenanigans to get additional king. The prince that was promised was to come, as we mentioned, fealty with 10 plots. And then Banner Wolf is an interesting showing here, and it's for the attrition package. Then we have Banner Rolls for go fast, stand stuff. Restricted cards, actually it's a tie. We have 6 decks running Series Baratheon, those are all the cohort decks. And one of them appears to be running King in the North, and I know which one. It's our deck. Then followed by Great Hall, Force March, there is the mentioned Banner of Attrition Ward, and there is a deck without restricted card. So yeah, that's the situation. Plots, go to opener for Baratheon again at the gates, then followed by You Win or You Die, and Duhaeris looks like to be their reset of choice, followed closer by Wildfire Assault, just because it beats a little bit of initiative over Return to the Field. But we know Return to the Field here is restricted, and it's not in that many decks. And after that, we see the big economy plot that Baratheon likes is one of the from the Iron Bank. Care to find those free Lords and Ladies, Baring, and at the Palace of Sorrow. I'm not sure why we see the Palace of Sorrow in Baratheon, but it found a spot in the top 5 with these counts. Now next we have Greyjoy. Greyjoy, again we see a big showing which is the strongest agenda. For the faction, it looks like that is the print that was promised. I was thinking it would be Crossing because how fast those decks are, but looks like that's not what the general meta thinks. So we have Prince that was promised, Kings of Winter, and then also the Crossing. The interesting things here is Banner of the Sun, which is playing a Drown God mechanic, and House with the Red Door is also, I think it was the Drown God. Restricted of choice, I mean, looks like Greyjoy doesn't even think about Great Hall, considering how big, how effective their big bodies are. We have Euron Crowley from the Kings of the Islands, and then Drown God Fanatic followed by it, and Drown Disciple for those few Drown God decks that they are around. Pretty showing that there is no need to go outside of their own restricted cards here. For the plots, here are exactly 5 plots that are above the rest. Valar Morghulis is above Heaven at the gates here, just because how good Greyjoy can leverage Valar Morghulis, and it's in 90% of their decks. Again, You Win, You Die, and not in Burst by the Code, just because Greyjoy can run those the location attrition packages that they have. Nothing bonus suits up pretty good in their strategy. Also, the 7 initiative is probably the more important factor. And then barring the gates for those few shadows, bound to the low decks, etc. Next, we have Lannister. So this is, in my eyes, the sad picture of Lannister. We know that Wani Crossing is probably their strongest build, and after that it's almost time for everything. People are trying everything here, and this may look like to be the sacrifice faction for the teams. At least at our side we had great troubles with finding what we play for Lannister, considering our options are already chosen. But yeah, that's the situation with Lannister. Crossing still good. I was expecting a lot more. I'm not sure why the Baron and Kraken is here, and also we know that White Book is consistent there with Jaime being able, Corset Jaime being a knight and able to save himself with the specific attachments. Combination. Banner of the Rangafustan, Banner of the Wolf for attrition, no surprise there, which leads to the ward being twice in the restricted cards. And coming to that, we see Great Hall, choice obvious, and then followed by no restricted cards. I don't know why those no restricted cards are not Great Hall, but probably consistency of the deck, too many restricted, or they just need more explosive economy in the face of King's Rolls. Then Ward, interesting, Breaking Ties is restricted in only one deck, I think, we saw earlier. So one is the running Breaking Ties is restricted, and we know that they don't have that many good loyal characters in my eyes. Then Return to the Fields and Raider from Pike. That caught me personally by surprise, but you know that Raider from Pike is this will be a heavy intrigue deck with pinch powder. So nothing will be safe, so basically again a heavy attrition deck. What's here we see at the gates, and the interesting thing is that Morgulis is second and not you win or you die. And as we see here, there is quite a diversity in plots. March showing for a first time in the top decks. Then First Snow of Winter. It's a basic, a good home in one star, always been in their decks. And then Head-on Pikes for the crossing decks. We know they're running 2 of them. And then Exchange of Information for the refills after you win or you die, or whatever happens to your hand. Interesting. Again, we see a heavy presence of trading with Pentoshi and one from Yaran Bank. And the other again in an equal situation. That giving 3 gold to your opponent looks like doesn't. One star maybe don't care about them, especially the crossing decks, which are extremely fast. Just a second to catch my breath. Next, Martel. This is another faction that there is a showing of a strong agenda within the faction, although I was expecting to be a lot more, to be honest. So here we have the Wars to Come and Banner of the Wolf are the most used factions. Wars to Come, we know the big Doran Games finishers for 6, 8, 9 power of an inter challenge, and then Banner of the Wolf for the Ward and the attrition. Banner Dragon Knights of the Whole Hill was shot from the shadows. Looks like people were experimenting here. Alliance, I'm not surprised to see Alliance here. That's in the Germany team, which was piloted by Yanis last time. And he, I think, didn't lose a single game with the deck, facing quite a lot of interesting matchups. Then we have people experimenting with banners in Martel for different purposes. Restricted cards, as we saw earlier, Doran's Game, nothing can beat that in the Martel list. And then Ward, and 5 people not running restricted card, and then Bribery. With our 1E player, we talked that if you're not running Doran's Game and you're not Banner of the Wolf, probably Bribery actually makes sense. For the control elements, I don't know. I think Breaking Ties makes sense there, just because of the all your small characters that are loyal that you just come into play, get their effect, and use them for something else. Here, another interesting is that he looks like resets are what drives Martel forward in the current meta. 23 decks are running Morgulis and 21 are running Duheris. This means that there is a lot of overlap of plots here. Both Morgulis and Duheris. That's part of it is driven by the Wars to Come being able to access all of them. The attrition banners, and again Knights of the Whole Hill, all of them like to run both resets and marches a lot. So this is the attrition. Looks like this is the attrition faction. And then of course, as I always, you win or you die, and there I think the Prince Donald Behaste is the only faction plot that we will see anywhere in the showing its face, and then at the gate for the economy that I don't think they need it, but well, it's there at the 5th place. Next, my favorite faction, although I hate the agenda that I see on the top, because I think it's for very unfriendly playstyle. But no one can deny how strong the faction, the combination of Kings of Summer and Builders is. Then it's followed closely by Valyrian Steel and the Conclave. And then Banner of the Wolf for attrition. Interesting that the Banner of the Wolf deck is not running Ward if you look at the restricted cards. Okay, Banner Kraken, Kings of Winter, Knights of the Hollow Hill, a lot of attrition. Interesting that Night's Watch White Conclave. 3 people decided to play Conclave there, so probably finding Yorin is very good regarding where he is. On the restricted side, there is no surprise here, I believe so. Yoren is the go-to restricted for the faction. And there some, the Valyrian Steel decks, obviously some of them will prefer Seasoned Wolfman, which is the backbone of the deck. And then Bound to the Wall for the, I think Knight of the Hollow Hill makes a lot more, the most sense to have Bound to the Wall, you need the tempo advantage. And Credus for the Kings of Winter, Banner Kraken, and probably, I think it was in one of the Valyrian Steels for the economy for the Challenger phase. If you go second. Here, another situation where we have with Martel, Valar Morghulis is on the top, but extremely closely followed by Exchange of Information at the gates. All they are tied for the first place, and then we have again Duharis, March, Attrition, Time of Plenty. Oh, I'm sorry about looks like for the watch is showing also as a royal plot, and then we have Late Summer Feast and Close Call. A lot of summer plots here aside from the reset and attrition packages showing, which is mainly driven by the Kings of Summer and the Builders shenanigans. Next, Stark. Now, this was my surprise when looking at the stats and the combination, not the mirror read part, but the Words of the Crossing. We probably just this is a local thing, our meta, we don't play that a lot of Stark Words of the Crossing. We are more of the fealty Knight of the Hollow Hill route for the agenda, and so this is why I'm surprised by the amount of Words of the Crossing. But considering that Vyman is free, maybe that makes a lot of sense. Then Stark as always known, fealty is a good choice for them with the current array of characters that they have. So we will see fealty following them, and then Knights of the Hollow Hill. Ward is very strong, and not by any chance surprised that it's always been on the restricted list. Here we will see that in the restricted slot, aside from the obvious things that are Mirror Read, Ward, Great Hall, we see some people opted to play Bear Island Scout for their crossing decks, and then we have Force March and Return to the Field for that a little bit of safety you want to have for your characters on the board. As we know, Stark are susceptible to resets, and yep. Plots. Here it's a tie for a 5th place with Wildfire Assault, Valar Dohaeris, and Political Disaster. Just because how relevant the Knights of the Hollow Hill is, we see Political Disaster showing here a little bit more. But aside from that, we see that it is more than the Knights of the Hollow Hill decks are running it, so looks like there is a huge benefit for having that in their arsenal. In my mind, the location control in the current meta is very important, just because how strong locations are getting, and no control of it. To Red Keep being one of the main offenders. And then we see You Win or You Die. Almost every Stark is playing You Win or You Die here to the Iron Throne. All of the cheap wards and ladies find that Vyman, which is free from the restricted list. So Vyman is in almost every Stark deck. Targaryen. We are almost at the end, and there is only one more faction after that, which is the Tyrell. Targaryen, here I was surprised that the Valyrian still is so high, although their attachments are great, and the quotes are not showing it, but Targaryen is one of the factions with their huge, good array of attachments that can leverage, for example, fortified position. But looks like it didn't make the cut with the 5 quotes that are pretty established in all of their decks. So after the Valyrian Steel, looks like the burn package is coming and dying for that. We see a House with the Red Door and Assault from the Shadows. In 90% of the cases, those are burn decks. Heavy burn, followed closely by Fealty. Fealty is also burn. Then we have Prince that was promised. And Banner of the Kraken, Wars to Come, Banner of the Lion. And Training with Kuhor. No surprise thing there. I don't remember what all the banners are doing. Now, when we look at the restricted cards, this is what caught me by surprise. Looks like people, I was expecting to see everyone running Marine here, and with some random inclusions of like Hilzar or Koto or Great Hall. But looks like that's not the case. Half the field is running, sorry, 30% of the field is running Koto, the other 30% are running Marine. Which is, yeah, I was expecting a lot more Marine, basically, is the gist of it. And then we see some people decided to play overwhelming numbers. It's a good fresh air seeing if it will pay off, and we see that King in the North is used, considering Hilzar is restricted alongside it, that is the only king there, so the deck is heavily depending probably on finding that one copy of King in the North. But we know how strong Gifts of the Widow are, so basically you have every attachment 4 times in your Valyrian Steel decks or in your Kuhor decks, like 4 to 5 times. Now to the plots. Rosetta choice looks like to be to Harris or March. There is no Morghulis here. So looks like Targaryen would still likes to keep their board with big characters and dragons, etc. And exchanging information for their refill. Their shadow event, which probably is one of that is most played shadow days that controls attachments, is triggered off with a summer pot, so that explains to some extent the the exchange of information. Also a lot of the Valyrian Steel decks and Kuhor also. And Tyrell. Again, another sad picture here, I think. Obviously there isn't one quote that shows prevalently how strong the which could rule. Interesting to see that we have Banner of the Lion and the White Book equal at the top with 4 decks. And from what I observed, those are basically the same deck, almost to like 70%. All of them are knights, doing knight stuff and closing in a flush. And then followed by Reigns, Banner of the Dragon. We know how strong the stand package is with both on Renly or Randil. Mostly the case is Renly. Then we have Prince that was promised a single deck and a few banners. Banner Wolf is an attrition deck now everywhere. Like when Tyrell can use at the Powers of Sorrows in multiples, and House 4 and Knights to remove stuff and work to get stuff for free. Yep. Now going to the restricted card, I don't think it's a surprise here, where we have Great Hall at the top, King in the North, closely followed by it, and then Return to the Fields with no restricted again, which could have always been a Great Hall in my eyes. And then another faction that is dibbling their toes in bribery. Interesting enough, Mirni's contract is not restricted, so probably that's the situation here, because there is a Banner of the Dragon here. One deck, and one of them looks like to be running bribery. And then we have Force March, which is surprising, but all the you can probably knew a whole board considering how many small knights in the they're accessible to. For the plots here, I had to cut down a little bit the numbers. You will see only 3 spreads of numbers. When we got to the fifth, there were 17 plots in the chart, so I decided to cut them down a little bit, and that's the situation we are to. We see at the gates, Winnow Dive, Ward to Harris, Warden of the South, one of the faction plots, and then King in the North, compelled by the Fate, and Close Call being able to recur their dead characters. Looks like to be the plan, and again Duharis showing here and there. And that's my last chart, I think. If I press the button, it will stop. So any comments are welcome. I will probably upload this in Google Drive somewhere and share it in the description of the YouTube video. For those that wanna have access to it and see the meta as a whole, I'll post probably the link. I will post the link in the Facebook in comments where I said I'll be streaming. And yeah, that's it. Thank you all for joining me. Any questions, comments? What would you like to do? You like the format like it's now? I know previous time Trey watched me previous time, and it was a lot of Excel spreadsheets, which I now condensed into this booting. Also, again, it was 45 minutes talking about numbers. But we know how much our community loves the numbers. Okay, so switching to our glorious Cancrum.